It gives me great pleasure to introduce Liane Wakabayashi, who spent 30 years in Japan and is now living in Israel. And we are here in Ramat Sharon, in the home of Soli and Paula Ganor.
With Light One Candle, Soli's amazing memoir about his life in World War II and his survival under extreme conditions. Soli, you're my hero.
Thank you so much.
And every day that I'm here in Jerusalem, I thank everybody who laid down their lives to defend the country so that I could be here, so that I could have an easy life, that I could have a beautiful life, that I could look out from my balcony at Yamin Moshe and see the old city and to see peace. I know I'm here because of you and people like you.
Thank you. That's what I had an idea why I came here instead of going to Canada.
Well, my father came here for a year and he couldn't handle it.
Really?
He came in 49.
From where?
Romania.
From Romania.
He came and his parents said to him, they'll follow. He went and got his papers to go to Canada. He was sponsored by a rabbi. His parents said, we'll join you. My grandfather died on the ship.
On the ship to Canada.
On the ship to Canada. My grandfather never made it there. So I think my father also realized that there's nowhere to escape from life. You know, you have to face your hardship wherever it's going to be.
Yeah.
And the way we handle our hardships is not easy. We have to have some kind of inner motivation to survive. And what I took away from your book is the power of love as a motivational force. That your father was there the whole time with you, that your mother was there for much of the journey. Your sister was there.
Yeah, that's true.
And your friends were there. That even there was laughter in the worst of times. You were making jokes.
Yeah.
How could you make jokes under those circumstances? But that's normal, that's natural. It means you're still a human. It means that the Nazis couldn't rob you of your humanity.
They couldn't. That's what. And we knew that they're going to lose the war by the time already in Lithuania, the defeat at Stalingrad shook up the Germans, and we heard about it. And we knew that they're not going to win the war. So we had to outlast them.
And that gave you a strength to survive.
Strength to survive.
I have a question for you. Are you, would you call yourself after this experience more spiritual for having survived?
More spiritual, yes. I always felt the more spiritual. That I had a capacity of surviving. But I also, you read in my book, I did my utmost to get some extra food and use every opportunity I can to survive.
What about your relationship with Hashem? You also talk about people davening that you'd hear before they died, they were reciting Tehillim. Did you see that in the camps too, that there was groups or individuals who were praying till the end? Were you one of those people?
I just put on Facebook a story of we call it Purim in Dachau, by a rabbi who was he made a Purim spiel in Dachau. We're dancing in the snow.
Wow.
You ever look at the Facebook today you can see it.
And what was your costume?
He made me into Mordechai.
You know, you don't say this in the book, but you seem like a pretty special guy. You were a personality. You were somebody to reckon with, weren't you?
I was an adventurer.
What does that mean to be an adventurer?
The fact that I went to join the merchant marine to travel the world because I wanted to see the world. Who goes, how many Jewish guys do you know that joins the merchant marine?
Well, what about the fearlessness? I mean, was that something that you were born with, you think? Or do you think that thanks to the Nazis you became more fearless and more adventurous?
Well, what happened was that during the war, death was after me all the time. And wherever I went, there was death. And somehow I survived. And I said, the Germans were saying, how did you do it? I said, I guess death was too tired running after me.
So now that you're at the end of your life, what's your relationship to death?
Well, by now I can't escape him. So we look at them and say, welcome. What can you say?
And you're okay with that?
Hopefully we go to a better place.
When you get to that better place, do you have any words for Hashem, for God, that you want to exchange with Him?
Well, as a Holocaust survivor, I was thinking about it. And then I would ask him, where were you during the time when they killed 1 million Jewish children? That's what I would ask. Maybe I shouldn't do that to God, but fact is that 6 million were killed without mercy, among them 1 million Jewish children who could have saved the world. Imagine how many of them could have done beautiful things in this world. So I have a little tiredness to the neighbors.
You're writing better than talking. You should read his story.
No, you're doing good.
Yeah, well, that's a story.
So when you're up there with God speaking, you ask Him, okay, what happened to the children? Do you ever think sometimes about the root of evil, that people could change from being your friend to your enemy, that people who were your neighbors, people who you played with, people who you trusted could turn on you? Has that been something that you've thought about over the years? Can you ever trust again after having that experience?
Well, I didn't trust. That's why they decided that it's not only the Germans who killed the Jews. All of Europe, the whole continent is soaked with Jewish blood. Wherever you go in Europe, you know the Jews were killed. Not only during the Holocaust, but even before that. 2,000 years, Jewish blood spilled in Europe, especially during the Holocaust. That's why I went to Israel, a place where I can defend myself in case they ever come against us again. And God to Duncan, thanks God that today Israel is strong enough to defend itself.
Do you think it is?
Absolutely.
If you could look into a crystal ball and see what the 21st century will bring, what do you see in 50 years from now?
Well, if the world will survive, and that's a good question. Because today we have enemies that we had 3,000 years ago, just now, in your Purim. About 3,000 years ago, you had Haman HaRasha. Suddenly you have Khomeini. Sounds like his cousin. It's almost the same name. And these guys are not after our blood. So, but at least now, at that time, you needed Esther Malka to save us. But today, thanks God, we have better means to do it than just having Esther Malka. So I'm pretty confident that if the world will survive altogether, there won't be a catastrophe between East and West, war of civilizations. There's a book came out that says the war of civilizations. And you have the Arabs today, the Muslims, who are determined to turn the world into a what do they call it? Caliphate. Everybody has to become Muslim, and those who not have to be killed. So that's the problem of the world, not only for us.
Do you believe in Moshiach, that the prophecy that there's going to be a savior and to bring the third world, the world of redemption?
Well, it's hard to believe in something like that, but hopefully it could. Hopefully it could be true. I wish it was.
Do you think that World War II may have brought us closer to that redemption? Because some people say that the miracle of the creation of the State of Israel is proof that we're living in Moshiach times.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Well, this can be happening, I don't know. But perhaps I would be all for it.
You're all for it. What would the world look like to you in Moshiach, in the time of Moshiach? How would be different from now, do you think?
Well, what they call resurrection. It would be. There was something interesting concerning that. We went to see a place called Har Megiddo. And we met, it's in Israel here somewhere, the kibbutz Har Megiddo. And there was a historian, Christian. And he said, you know what means Har Megiddo? I said, no. Har Megiddo is Har Megiddo. He said, it's the Christian Armageddon. The Armageddon. The Greeks made Har Megiddo into Armageddon. And he says that this will be the point where the evil against the good will be fought. It was kind of strange. It was just an ordinary kibbutz though. And imagine 2,000 years ago they wrote about Armageddon, that this is going to be the place. So who knows?
Do you study Torah, or have you studied Torah?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a teacher?
In Lithuania, I went to a religious school in Yavne. It was a religious school. You all Kepalach. And studied in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm. And
Lithuania altogether was, We had 3 Hebrew high schools where Hebrew was studied because most of the Lithuanian Jews wanted to eventually immigrate to Israel.
Some say that every point in history has been recorded and predicted in Torah. Do you believe that?
I can't deny it or can't prove it, I don't know.
Well, in the last couple of decades of your life, right? May you live to be 120. What have you got planned to do? What's on your agenda?
Well, I like to write. I'm writing now my 4th book.
What is the book on?
It's the story of my father in the Russian Revolution.
Oh, the one that he told that he did the storytelling that saved his life and yours in the ghetto, right? Not the ghetto, in the camp.
Yeah, but he was a young man. He participated in the Russian Revolution. He was a social democrat.
Mm-hmm.
What they call Menshevik, they call them. And when the Bolsheviks took over the power, they condemned him to death. So he ran away from Russia to Lithuania and married my mother. Met my mother, and that's why they married. And that's why I speak Russian as well.
Through your father.
My father, my parents were speaking Yiddish and Russian. And I was born with German. So I was really overwhelmed in languages.
And that, do you think, was something that there was this you could turn off, or let's turn it off, thanks.
The 30 years that you were in Japan, were you religious?
When I went there, no. I was there was one conservative shul when I arrived in the 80s. And it was just after Marvin Toker. You know, Marvin Toker wrote many books about the Fugu Plan, many books about Asian history. And
I think I even met him.
he was from Great Neck. I was from Great Neck. He would have been my bar mitzvah rabbi, the one who trained me, but he was in Japan, so we just
He wrote a
crossed.
book, do you remember? Took care. No?
Yes, several books. And then in not until 2000 was I interested in religion. It was only after Chabad came. And by that time I had a baby, one daughter. My daughter was born on Rosh Hashanah. And
In Japan.
Yes, I thought, why do I have this Jewish child born in Japan? What could it possibly mean? And it became my destiny to give my 2 children a Jewish education in Japan, which was very, very tough. Because there's no Jewish schools. There are no teachers to speak of. There were no books. There was no translations and the children's, the economy is the father is paying the bills. So there was no money to pay for
Your
this.
husband was Japanese?
He is Japanese, yes.
Japanese.
Hmm. So it had to be a commitment. It had to be a decision, a conscious decision, that the theme of our life would be Jewish in Japan. And I started taking my babies to Chabad house every Shabbat. And so they grew up with the Chabadniks, with the other Chabad children. And then my children thought that the whole world were either Japanese Jews or Chabad kids. They couldn't imagine anything else. And as they got older, they said to me, they took me aside, Mom, you know, we're not like them, we're not Chabad, you know, look at us, look at our faces, we're different. But I could see that they also felt they weren't Japanese. So my son, at a very young age, decided that he was going to keep kosher. He was going to bring his own lunches to school. In junior high, he made his own kosher lunches and brought them. And from
Where did you live?
in
Japan?
Setagaya, in Tokyo. In Tokyo, yeah. It was beautiful. It was a very nice community. That was a beautiful place. But we were 12 kilometers from the shul. So that was a long walk on Shabbat. And we used to do it. Me and my daughter would walk.
Yeah, I know another couple who lived in Yaotsu. She was working in
Hanit.
Hanit, yeah.
Hanit,
Yeah.
her daughter, and my son are now in the same school in Israel studying.
Really?
Yes. And I'm going to see Hanit in a few weeks.
Ah.
She and I are going to meet up in Tokyo. So we contact each other all the time.
Give her my regard.
I will. She's good. She's coming in April to Israel to see her daughter. So it's
She
amazing.
was here not long ago when my cousin took her, went to Japan and they took her as a guide.
As a guide, she's very knowledgeable and speaks many languages. She's
Yeah.
great. Do you know the whole aura around Yaotsu is not quite historically accurate because the family never lived in Yaotsu.
Yeah.
They lived in
Bokitomi.
Kamakura. They lived near Tokyo.
So I don't know why they use the also.
I'll tell you why. Gifu is very smart and aggressive with tourism. They
Who?
are Gifu Prefecture. The area,
the Gifu.
the Gifu Prefecture is extremely clever with tourism. They're professionals. They saw the opportunity and they jumped on it. And Kamakura does not need the Sugiharas. They have enough monuments. A 9th century capital of Japan. There are temples everywhere. So okay, there's a connection to Sugihara. They didn't go after it. But to me, that's really where the story is, that's where Yukiko lived. Did you ever visit her when in Japan, in her home?
I met the man who gave the money to build the park.
Oh,
He was a friend of Sugihara, school friend. And then I was in Japan, then he died. And his family invited me to come and honor him.
nice.
So, but there was one thing which was very unpleasant. They had a habit that I was supposed to kneel on a cushion and put his ashes.
Oh, so what did you do?
it's- Well, I couldn't refuse. I felt, as a Jew, I felt uncomfortable to kneel.
Yeah.
But I did it anyway, and the pictures, I hope that people won't see it, but they photographed it in the Japanese place.
They did, right?
The Indian man gave some $3 million to build a park. Did you know about that?
I didn't know. So it was a private donation
Private
for
donation.
the.
I was in the house of the man.
They should have built a bus route because it's such a remote location. It's very hard to get to Yaotsu.
I know.
So this is the problem. It's and in Japan it's a very well-connected country. Usually it's no problem to get anywhere, but Yaotsu is a tricky.
It's way out of the.
It's a tricky one.
But the park is
Can
nice.
I mention something? Soli, you were with Mrs. Sugihara in Japan at the dedication.
Yeah, she invited us.
And you sat with her, there's pictures with you and Mrs. Sugihara.
Yeah, I have some pictures if you want to see.
Yeah, Liane, Soli was with Mrs. Sugihara in Japan.
She invited us. She invited me to sit down by her side.
Survivor. It's very nice.
Was, she remembered me.
In 2016, December, the Japan Times asked me, because I wrote for the newspaper, Japan Times asked me to write about Hanukkah for the Japanese. And I thought, what can I say? There's hardly anything to write about. And then, in the back of my memory, I remember Sugihara was introduced to Jewish people on Hanukkah. Is that right?
That's, I invited him.
That you invited him.
Yeah.
Was that something that a
that's what-
normal 12-year-old does, is invites guests to their house?
Well, it was such a strange thing. I'm a very impulsive type. So I came to my aunt to a Hanukkah gift, and he was there buying chocolate for his children. So he was curious, and he said, why, about this money that she gave me. So she explained to him. He spoke perfect Russian. He spoke in Russian. And he said, well, he wanted to give me some money too. So I said, well, you're not the family. I didn't know. The first time I saw a Japanese person in my life. So he said, well, for this Hanukkah, I'll be your uncle. So if you're my uncle, why don't you come, just blurt it out. Come to a Hanukkah party on Saturday. That's how he said that life and death is the katzeh halashon. There's such an expression in Hebrew. And then it just came out, and the whole thing turned around. I invited him to our Hanukkah party. And how does a 12-year-old invite? That's a good question.
Right.
I had a bit of a chutzpah. My aunt thought my aunt became red in the face, you know.
What did your parents say when you brought him home?
My aunt told my parents that they're coming, because they said he's interested. He wanted to meet people. So Gihara was actually a spy between you and I. He was sent by the Japanese intelligence. Well, what was his business in Kaunas of all places?
Nothing. There was nothing
There's
to.
nothing there. So he wanted to meet people, and this invitation showed them, where he met my uncles and aunts and other Jewish people to us. So that's how he got acquainted to the Jewish people. But he was quite a personality. He was married before the Russian woman.
He was.
Yeah. That's why he spoke Russian so well. I mean, he spoke Russian without an accent.
He spent 15 years away from his wife after the war, living in Russia too, in Moscow.
Yeah.
Was he back with his wife, or was that we don't know?
No, because he was fired from the Foreign Office.
But she didn't go with him the second.
But it was hard for him to make a living. He had no profession besides being a diplomat. But knowing Russians, a Russian company suggested he comes and works in Moscow. And that's how he was making a living.
How were you making a living after you got out of the army, the Marines? When you came to Israel after the war, what did you start doing to support yourself?
I went to became an officer in the Merchant Marine.
Yeah, and then after?
After that, I married my wife.
And she was, of course, independently wealthy and supporting you.
No, she had a textile factory.
She what?
Textile factory.
Who had? You?
Their family.
Oh, the family did.
That's right.
Where?
In Israel.
That's interesting. So you
So the father and uncle persuaded me to.
join?
He said, if you can be a captain on a ship, you can be also working as a they made me into promoting. So I worked in the factory in the imports and exports.
Mm.
And the two of us then started working together, exporting goods from here to United States and Europe, textiles.
Mm. What kind of textiles?
We had a variety of textiles.
Made
It was
into
a big,
garments?
enterprise. And we had about 250 workers.
Mm. Mm.
They were doing all kinds of wool, synthetic fibers, exporting synthetic fibers to Finland and Europe, and so that was my job.
And when did the writing started? It seemed like after you met Matsumura at that reunion. Was that the turning point for writing, or had you had a drawer full of the writing all along, waiting to?
I didn't think of publishing it. I wrote, but I wrote for myself. Number one, I didn't know anyone would be interested to publish it. And to get to publish a book is not such a simple thing. You know, you have to get
Tell them about Derek Soul.
So
About?
what happened was that when Mr. Sugihara invited us to come to Yaotsu, there was a group of Japanese American soldiers, those who saved me, who came to Japan as well. And one of them was actually a colonel in the American Army Intelligence, a Japanese person. And he heard that I have written a book, that I've written a manuscript. So there was somebody from Kodansha there. And it was
Do you remember who it was?
it's another strange story. She was a Hungarian woman who married to a
Elaine!
Huh?
Elaine, my friend Elaine Nadaya, she's like my aunt.
Okay.
Elaine and I are
I
like,
can't believe it.
Unbelievable.
that was Elaine? That was
Yeah,
Walking with me all the time.
Elaine
called her
and
bag lady.
Shoji. Shoji's her husband.
Yeah, from Kodansha.
That was how it happened. Oh
She
my
was
goodness.
traveling with us all over Japan.
And she was eating with us. I told her she's a poor woman, you know.
You thought she was.
A poor woman, because she was she called her a bag lady. She had also the
Whatever,
bag.
you know, I ordered food and I gave her half. We're sitting at the table.
She's eccentric. She's eccentric.
Eccentric woman.
Her husband was the editor-in-chief of
that's
Kodansha
what she told
magazine.
Well,
us.
that's
Wait,
how
I didn't
that's how my book was published.
Oh my goodness, what a connection. Oh,
Liane, is this not amazing?
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I have to sit here and do
I just called Elaine for her birthday. She's 81, I think, or 82.
That
And
was funny.
she lives near my in-laws in Tokyo, so I would see her all the
She
time.
said to me, your book will be published by Kodansha.
We didn't
And
know.
I
what
never,
kind of-
who's Kodansha and what is she talking about? I looked at that, it was strange. She always attracts strange people. So this strange woman traveling with us. Next thing I know, there's a British man, his British accent calls me. He says, I heard you wrote a book which we may be interested in. I said, who are you? said, I am from Kedansa. I said, who's Kedansa?
Is it Barry? Was it
So
Barry?
I said, who?
Barry? I don't remember. If it was-
Could be. I have even his letter in writing. So I said, we are aware of that and we'd be interested in it. So I said, I don't have it with me, but I have it in America. So I said, okay, we have
Oh,
an office at Fifth Avenue in New York. Fifth Avenue, New York, that sounds good. Said, bring the manuscript there and they'll send it to us.
and he
So
was
when
sent
we
it to Japan, but he never did.
So we came back to the States, and I came to him. He was a dapper-looking man with a beautiful suit, and a Japanese person. And I brought him the manuscript, and he said, "I'll give you an answer." And I went to a friend, to one of my survivors' friends in Baltimore. In the evening, there's a phone call. I don't know how I got the number of my friend. And it was the Japanese guy. And he says, you know, I'm the chief editor, but I usually don't read books like yours. But your book really interested me. You sure know how to write, he says to me. I'm ready to, and I tell you what, I think you first publish it in English, and to Japan I'll send it later. That's how it worked out.
That's how the book started.
Unbelievable.
What a strange coincidence.
It's every word is the truth.
What, did they edit it much, or did they not do that much to it? after?
He liked my writing to start with. He said that you write well. I said, thank you very much. And he made me an offer of some money too.
Yeah.
Kodansha's a big company. They should
Big-
make you
They
big
money.
out.
didn't sell so many books.
Said, yeah, we are the fourth largest company in the world.
There is already second edition. Did you
How
see
many
the
books have
second
sold? Do you have any idea?
Many books they sold. They even had a play in
Yeah.
Tokyo.
edition? In Tokyo, we had a copy of it
Yeah,
somewhere.
a copy of it. So that's how life is strange. I'm meeting you now meeting this lady.
We're all connected, you know.
Unbelievable.
Everyone
Some
is.
of course, he's from Lithuania and I'm from Poland, and already, look, what a
Olam
combination.
Katan, it's a small world.
There's no excellence. Everything is min hashamayim.
Unbelievable.
It's
I'm beginning to believe it.
Yeah, even
But
really.
Liane, I told you, you're going to be meeting some very special people.
yeah.
Some exceptionally special.
Thank you for taking me
This
here.
is
Really,
something-
it's I'm very moved.
It's
It's very
unbelievable.
powerful. I'll tell you, Elaine never had children, right? She and Shoji never had children of their own.
I can't hear.
How did she marry this Japanese guy?
They met because she was a volunteer for the Bobby Kennedy election campaign in the 60s. And he was in New York City to cover the election. And the night that he was shot, they were both at the headquarters together.
No kidding. This party, she never talked. She was not very talkative.
It's surprising that she's not talkative, but she's got an amazing story
Yeah,
to tell. They've been married for nearly 50 years, and she's been in Japan the whole
So give her
time.
my
Very
regard.
delightful.
I will. That's really
Here, the
quite,
red button, here,
quite something.
here.
What?
How long have you been painting? Because I'm also a painter, so I'm looking at your art, and it's
Did you
wonderful.
see some
Very-
restrictions?
When we lived in San Diego for a while.
And what were you doing there?
We had real
Right.
estate business.
We
Oh,
got it.
really? Yeah?
It was a good place to have a real estate
Very
business.
good.
In La Jolla, if you know San Diego, La Jolla.
I don't. don't know. I've heard of it.
Beautiful place. We have a condominium.
So
So
we
that's
were
what you-
buying and selling houses.
But our daughter, we decided to go to the army.
Uh-huh.
And she had already after a back operation, but she went to the army. And she wanted to stay here, so we went back.
Came back to Israel. You lived 7 years in San Diego.
And you know, San Diego is like paradise.
Is it?
The climate is good, it's quiet like here.
Let me just turn it, there's so many things to ask you, but one of the themes that really is very strong for me is a theme of healing. It's very, very hard to write a book like, any book it's hard to write, any memoir it's hard to write, but to write a memoir where there's pain on every page and there's blood and death on every page, and there's a process of, you have to forgive in order to write something like that, don't you? Is there an element of forgiving in order to survive some kind of experience like this?
Well, yeah. The fact is that I was going every year to Germany to lecture to the place where the whole thing started. There's certain forgiveness.
Even now they send
Otherwise I couldn't do it.
And what about your own country, Lithuania? Have you ever been invited there to
Yes,
speak?
I was.
And?
I went there and it was too gruesome, much worse than Germany.
Still?
Because there was the whole killing next to I witnessed all this murder. It was Lithuania, not in Germany, as far as I'm concerned.
Where the
Murder took
killing
place.
fields for you were there.
Yeah.
Can I just say something very briefly? I was last Thursday, it was the 100th anniversary of Lithuania independence.
Yeah.
And they had an event in Tel Aviv, and the ambassador of Lithuania spoke, and he said that we take responsibility. He said we admit that there were Lithuanians that were involved, and we do take responsibility. And the only way that Lithuania can move on is if we look at our past and we take responsibility for what we did, and we ask forgiveness. So I videoed that event.
That's very unusual.
It's very unusual, and the deputy ambassador a year ago in Yerushalayim also mentioned very similar words, which I was lucky enough to be at, and I videoed that as well. So at least today, the Lithuanian and the foreign minister of Lithuania also, he was in Israel about 6 months ago, and I heard him. It was a breakfast talk at the King David Hotel, and we videoed it, and it's on YouTube. We also said we take responsibility.
The question is, are the textbooks reflecting that? Are the children learning about the history, about the perpetrators, about the way the
In
Lithuanians?
Germany they are.
But in Lithuania, are they?
Lithuania, no.
They're not. Are there monuments to the Jews? Is there any kind of museum for the Jews?
There are a few.
No, there are monuments, and in Mariupol, where our family comes from, they say this is the synagogue and this is where the massacres happened. They are in Lithuanian and in Hebrew.
Are there graveyards? What happened to all
No,
those?
They have some graveyards. They have in various times of winter. They do have.
About Lithuania.
It's a slow process, but they have in a lot of the towns. They have.
Yeah,
In Vilna,
they
the mayor of Vilna is actually very good. He's
the new generation are getting a little more civilized.
Well, do you think then that this sudden Polish announcement is an aberration, or is this a trend that they're going that what's happening now, the Polish denying their role?
The anti-Semite in Poland and anti-Semite in Lithuania, don't worry. In 2000 we went to visit Poland, and I could hear them and see how the anti-Semites they were, remember?
Yeah.
So is this a trend now, or is this something solely that...
It's, I think, the problem is that the immigration from Africa flooding into Europe now is provoking a reaction which goes to the right. Who comes now into force? The fascists. It's the fascists who are, because they say now we're getting these Arabs coming to overtake our country. So who is against them? Obviously they're extreme right. And that's the problem now. That all over Europe, the extreme right is rising because of the infiltration of the Muslims.
And
So
should Jews
that is
fear?
against the Jews too.
So when you see this, do you think that some Jews are right by saying that it's time to leave?
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Europe is lost. The Muslims have now a two-pronged attack. One is flooding the refugees who will never adapt to this country, to Europe. They'll never become Europeans. And the other one is by force, by blowing up people, by killing people. So they have a two-pronged attack now,
Mm.
the Arabs.
But as we know, Europe will never be the same again. The thriving cities and towns of Europe that were brought on or represented by Jewish wealth, by beautiful synagogues, by craftsmanship, by all the things that you write about in the book that your mother loved and
Yes.
savored, by the books, by the music, the culture, all that was decimated when the Jews
Then that's right.
left. Is that
Now they're getting the Arabs
now they-
instead of the Jews.
and what are they
Says-
bringing to
Serves them right.
this? And what do you think is the trade-off? So the Arabs come and what are they bringing to Europe?
The Arabs are bringing, they are absolutely determined not to spread out in Europe and become a caliphate. That's their aim. The final aim, ask any Arab, will tell you a worldwide caliphate. That everybody, those who don't want to become Muslims have to go. It's very simple.
And you think that the European heads of state are not tuned into this?
I think they're waking up a bit, but the problem is those who are waking up are our enemies, the fascists.
Mm.
Is that a steady storm?
Yeah.
We should go. Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to thank you for this fascinating.
You know, he
Interview.
and his friends are the only
I'd like to
survivors.
continue if we can. I feel that we've touched this kind of surface. I've jumped around to many, many topics, but I'd like to talk to you again if we have an opportunity.
Okay, sure. Anytime you feel like it.
Thank you.
I will
Yes,
bring with the
my-
greatest of pleasure. I'll be
You're
bringing.
my ambassador.
Oh,
Thank
such
you.
such a good, such an honor.
But we didn't see the movies.
I'll be making you copies later.
There's one thing I'd like to record, which is this. Right now, memoir writing is quite popular. People are committing to paper their life stories, and there's a lot of hard stories out there. It takes a lot of courage to put down your life story.
Yeah.
And do you have any words of advice for people who've lived through wars or lived through tragedies, who are faced with writing their story down, and as you said, I didn't know if anyone would read it. I didn't know if anyone would be interested. What words of encouragement could you give to somebody who's got a story to tell?
Well, those who, most of us who survivors are gone. You know how many survivors that we got left alive? I'm the last one of my group. Don't forget to be all 90 by now. So how many people are still alive? But also,
He and another one, the only survivors of Dachau
yeah.
at that age.
So there are not too many who can sit and write. And the problem of writing today, the young people are not very interested in reading.
You've seen the pictures how all his friends died. All his friends were younger than him and they all
Yeah.
dead.
They're all busy with their iPhones and they're busy with watching all the time the kids, you see them all walking around with the iPhone. Less and less are reading.
It's true. What is the discipline? Is there a discipline to writing? Is there a certain time of day or a certain time of the week where you
I write at night.
write at night? Is that why your wife says that at 5 a.m. when she wakes
Yeah.
up you're going to sleep?
That's right.
Is that true? Still?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote quite a few books, and they were published in Germany and
You don't know
Japan.
German. You don't read German.
No. No. So writing at night, that's your thing. Writing
Yeah.
at night.
I write a lot.
Listen, he was lucky. He fell down a year and months ago when he got up from the computer. And lucky that he hit the leg and not the head.
Yeah.
So now for a year we don't go out of the house.
Almost.
But his hand is working.
It's
So
amazing.
he can write.
It's not only working.
I work a lot
Sally is
with
very active on Facebook.
Facebook.
We'll be
is
Facebook friends.
Facebook. A lot of
Yes.
people are reading my articles.
Yes. Yes.
And
Mm.
sharing. It's being shared
Yeah.
all over as
Share.
well.
When he calls at 11, I tell him he's sleeping. I'm not ashamed to say that. But in the evening, tonight somebody at 12 o'clock called. I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, we better go before it gets back before Shabbos. Yes.
I just want to...
It was a
I
pleasure
just-
to meet you.
Right.
Such a
Paula, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
Sally, wow, this is our hero. And so, Paula, you are our heroine. And
That's
Sally,
what I said
there's no
about
one
it.
like you.
Wow.
You really, Sally, I mean it. There's no one like you.
I have
There
a
really
lot
isn't.
of-
One day I'll show you the love letters he writes me.
I have a lot of material for you.
Okay.
'Cause
Sally, with
better
pleasure.
I give it-
It's an honor to be your ambassador. I always wanted to be an ambassador, and to be your ambassador, I couldn't wish for anything more.
Thank you
But
so
Sally,
much.
thank you so much. Really. And Liane, it's from the heart, really. This is the connection. What a small
Yeah,
world.
it's
It's amazing.
unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Unbelievable.
It's Mina
Yeah,
Shammai.
this
It really
story
is.
is all
Yeah.
Elaine.
about the land.
Elaine. And
Of
it
all the
showed
people
you,
in Japan, that's it.
it showed you too that,
I can't believe it. Years ago.
yeah. She's,
Well, we'll...
She's still living in Japan.
Yeah, look, you don't end up in Japan unless you're eccentric anyway.
Yeah.
So of course, we're a bunch of eccentrics there. That's the truth of the matter.
Well,
Um,
Japan had a very big influence on Sony. To
Yeah.
meet Sugihara, to have been saved by
know.
Japanese American soldiers.
I know. Look, there's a lot of work for us to do in
Beautiful.
Japan because, you know, Japan is a safe haven. Japan doesn't have a history of
Do you have
anti-Semitism.
Only said that I'm
do
not
you have email?
Yeah, I do.
So give it to me.
Sally,
My
thank you so
card.
much. Liane, thank you very much.